of. Don't get too confident. We might have a gap.
We might get another big snowstorm. I
Yeah,
know. But
yeah.
today, it's warm. The birds are singing. People are out moving dirt and everything else.
Getting ready to mow lawns and covering their flower beds. But just kind of just take a deep breath. It's early. It's early.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, what town are we in today?
We are in Pigeon Falls, Wisconsin today.
And Mary, do you know why it is called Pigeon Falls?
Oh, Nancy. You know, when I was a kid, I always thought it was because of the mill. Because there was always a lot of pigeons by the mill, and you shouldn't look up in Pigeon Falls.
Okay, well.
Okay, I think she's going to tell me I am wrong.
According to a history of the county, in 1848, there were two men that were passing through here, and this was before there was really any white settlers here.
Okay, okay.
And it was getting to be sundown, and this big flock of passenger pigeons was coming in to roost for the night.
Okay.
And
that's in the time when we still had passenger pigeons.
Right, and they said that there would be thousands of birds in these big flocks, and they were coming in, and they were sitting in the trees and the bushes. And there were so many of these pigeons that it was making the branches bend and break.
Oh.
And the pigeons were falling.
Oh, the place where the pigeons fall out of the trees. I get it now. Pigeon Falls. Didn't have anything to do with the mill or the truss bridge.
Well, otherwise it might have been just called Pigeon Mill.
It could have been Pigeon Mill.
Pigeon
yeah,
Mill.
or Pigeon Bridge.
Yeah, yeah.
Or something on those lines.
Pigeon Falls. So today we are going to go to a place that makes our fans real happy.
Well, they go wild over this, and I haven't quite figured out why.
Yeah, I don't know either.
No, we are not going on Name That Road, because we are on the History Files. But here in Pigeon Falls, they have 3 of these locations.
3 cemeteries, yep.
3 cemeteries.
We're in the one that was the old Lutheran
Yes.
church that burned down, and then there's the newer church, which is just due west of us.
They were at one time called the Lower and the Upper Church.
Upper and Lower, yep.
Yes.
And so now we're going to go to the little cemetery that is right on the edge of town.
Yep, just behind the local gas station.
Right, and it's the oldest one, and we'll talk a little bit about the town of Pigeon and the village of Pigeon. And like we say, our fans seem to like us in cemeteries.
Well, there's always so much to learn in a cemetery, and who knows whose family members we're going to get a chance to revisit today.
And we also have a little bit of a mystery that we're going to talk about.
Oh, brother, she's bringing on a mystery, you guys. You know, it's bad enough she never tells me where we're going.
Well, like I say, I want Mary on her edge. And I got to explain about the hat. Over the winter, I had a couple of surgeries for skin cancers, and I've got to learn to wear the hat.
Yes, and we should all get ourselves. We could get matching hats.
Yeah,
we could be fashion plate hat wearers. Oh, okay. We could sell hats.
Maybe we could.
To get our bus.
Yeah, it'd take a lot of hats though, wouldn't it?
Then we wouldn't have to worry about being in the sun.
No.
There we go. So, Nancy, what do you say we hit the road?
Mary is our rock expert, but she doesn't know what rocks are.
To me, they look like sandstone. And this could have been one of the steps going in, you know? Exactly. Cornerstone. This one's got a really interesting hole in it, and this one almost looks like granite. This one looks like granite because of how it's patterned. But you know, they brought in stone from a lot of places, Nancy.
And look what they brought in for the church. This is amazing. It's a great big old brass bell. And can you imagine how heavy that thing is?
Well, I would imagine they used a team of horses to pull it up.
Or ox, I don't know. That would have been really, really heavy. And it was cast by somebody, I'm trying to read the name, J.G. Stucksteda. It looks like something like that. Stoopstead. And it's written in, it looks like it's written in Norwegian. But imagine how heavy that is.
Oh, what a pretty bell. And that's just a knuckle tap.
And I'll look up at the top, they've got all that beautiful decoration around it. Isn't that something? Beautiful.
Quite the superstructure.
Yes, it is.
Well, they had to be able to hear it in the country, Nancy.
Yeah. And I'm sure, I just can't imagine them getting it up into a belfry. You know, gosh, that really must have been.
Well, all these old churches, Nancy.
Must have been really something. We just take it for granted, but that must have been quite the process.
And this was in 1883. St. Louis, Missouri.
Oh, wow. So that must have come up the river and then got hauled up here from Winona or Trempealeau or La Crosse. Can you imagine?
Yeah, no easy feat. A little hard on the knuckles, but it does sound pretty.
All right, so fire up the mobile. In the village. All right. We're going to go in here.
We're gonna give Mary a moment to get clicked in, or the navigator is gonna go off.
Going ding, ding, ding. So it's not very far. It's just a couple miles or less up the road here. And actually, from what I was reading, the town of Pigeon was one of the last areas in the county to be settled. It was like kind of like Chimney Rock and Pigeon.
Okay.
And the reason in Pigeon was, well, there were two reasons.
Is-
One reason was they said that there was very little timber. It was mainly brushy
And swampy.
and swampy, and it looked like it would be hard to clear. But the other problem too was that most of this land here was owned by a railroad company, and it was quite a ways from the railroad.
Yeah, the railway didn't come anywhere close to Pigeon.
And they weren't really sure if the railway company would sell it or not, or if they were just going to give it to the government so it would go up for homesteading. Pioneer Cemetery.
A little bit older.
See, they have a nice fence around it so they don't have to worry about cows getting in there.
That's right, because chances are at one time in history they probably put a few sheep in here in the day and let them graze,
Well,
right?
That's a good way to do mowing.
Well, if they couldn't find marsh hay, because we didn't have reed canary grass flats yet. In those days, Nancy, there wasn't even such a thing as reed canary grass.
All right. Let's just see who we have. I think And then I told you we have a little bit of a mystery going on.
And I want to take a look at the gate.
This looks like a big old lilac bush, doesn't it?
Well, and you know, Nancy, the one thing I often wonder, in these older cemeteries, how many people are really here because of time and age and naughty people stealing headstones, breaking headstones, you know, things like that.
Now here's a lady that died in 1883. It looks like she was 20, a Frederickson, or
Maria.
like Frederickson. Yeah.
But on this side, it says Julia Munson.
Okay. These are some pretty old stories.
Julia Munson Faden.
That means born.
Okay, July 18th, 73, died 1882.
And here's one on the other side too.
And this one's Maria.
Yep. And then go around, but her name is Frederickson.
And this is Andres Munson. Looks like 65 to 80. Munson. Looks like 65 to 82. So this must be like a family.
It's an old one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And what is this one? This one's 1883.
Yeah.
So they all died in pretty short order.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure life wasn't easy back then.
Absolutely not. Now, is there any record that there was a church up here?
No, I don't think there was. I just think, you know, when people started moving in here, before they really got churches going, they had to have somewhere to bury people besides, you know, out back behind the barn or the shed. So this was like a real early cemetery, apparently. Now, I told you we had a little bit of a mystery. So what's the name of the coulee that you live in?
Fuller Coulee.
Yes, and you may have heard this story before, but there was a Mr. Fuller. He was supposed to be the first person living up there. And he was in bed. He and his wife were sleeping, and it was a big thunderstorm came up. And wouldn't you know it, a bolt of lightning came through the window and hit Mr. Fuller. Didn't hit his wife, but it killed him.
It did it really?
It killed him.
Oh my goodness.
So, of course, he was buried. And then I found out that his wife remarried, and she remarried a Mr. Daggett, who would have been
One valley down. One coulee down.
Yeah. So at some point, I don't know where they buried him. Maybe they buried him out, you know, in the pine trees or something behind the house.
In the backyard.
Well, it could be.
Well, a lot of folks got buried out in the backyard.
People were pragmatic. So he, at some point, they dug him up. I guess they were going to rebury him, and they found out that he had become petrified.
No, seriously? Or are you just making that up?
No, that's what it says in the history.
He was petrified.
He was petrified.
So were they able ever to figure out how or why or?
It must have been something to do with being struck by lightning. And now the mystery is, where did they rebury him? Because I have looked through all the, you know, cemetery inscriptions in here, like for around Whitehall and Pigeon, and I can only find one Fuller listed, and that was in the town of Lincoln Cemetery in Whitehall. It's back by the hospital. And there was a Fuller name that was, somebody called Fuller was buried there, but they don't have any name, and there's no stone. So I And there were some daggetts buried there. So I thought, well, maybe he got thrown in with the daggetts, you know.
Oh my goodness.
But we don't know where the petrified man was reburied. I don't think he was reburied out here anyway.
Always a mystery.
There is. There is. The petrified man of Fort.
Well, and I wonder, you know, if they were to come out here with like ground penetrating radar, I wonder what they'd find. LiDAR, yes.
Yeah.
I wonder what they would find. You know, because there's markers and there's pieces of markers.
And these look like, you know, old lilac bushes, which always got
Yes.
buried. You know, not buried, but people put them out by graves and everything. So this looks like a real old one. So I assume it's been here for a while.
Well, and then you wonder, was there a church with it? Was there even just a small gathering place? You know, why are some of the stones turning a certain color? And I know it's because of age and weathering.
Now this one is in very good shape over here. This one's probably one of the
1813 or so?
that's what it says, Robert Pigeon.
1913.
1913.
So is he in your book?
I will look in just a minute.
Okay. Can you see anything on those?
These are really old. Okay, that's like
These would have
broken off.
these would have to be etched.
yeah.
These would
They
have to
been
be
broken
etched.
off, and the one to your right says Edwin, 1862 to 1919. So that's probably the newer one.
And this has holding hands. This one here.
Well, I'm going to give you the camera, and
And you're going to flip through some pages.
I'm going to read off who they had records for.
Oh, there's the Edwina one. I was thinking to myself, how could you be reading that off of that stone? And granted, I've got on my cheater sunglasses, so I can see what I'm doing.
Well, this cemetery was read by Zilpha Erickson in November 1890. And she had Larsons buried here, and Clara, two Claras, and a Hendrick. And then staff, there were staffs, Henry, Marie, Jens, and Lovisa. And this is sad, 7 children in the family died of diphtheria. Can you imagine
no.
that? Yep, terrible. Then there was the Johnsons with 2 markers. And then Eckern, Hulda, who was a daughter of Peter Eckern. And then Robert Peterson, the one that is behind us, and he, it says, was a mail carrier. And that there's supposed to be at least 12 children buried around where he is.
Oh, wow.
Then there was a Nielsen, and then the Fredrickson Monsons that we just looked at. Now you see all these dates are back in the late 1880s, 1882, 1886. And that's all they have records. Diphtheria epidemics during the 1880s in this county.
Well, and if the whole family died, who's there to put up stones?
Yeah, and how would you afford if you were just
A peasant farmer.
immigrant farmer just trying to probably, keep everything together, and you had a whole bunch of your family die, you certainly couldn't afford to put up stones for them, I'm sure. They might have had wooden markers, and they're just, long gone.
Well, right.
Yeah.
But it would be interesting to see, because some of them do have texture, if they could run radar across rock. Because when they do those etchings, they go pretty deep.
Now these over here are black, but I see some interesting kind of lichen growing on them.
Well, and lichens typically tell the age of the stone and the weather conditions. And if this was always having some tree coverage, but this one here,
These are really
This one here, this was at 1886, I think.
And I've seen that date a lot. I think there was a major diphtheria epidemic going through it. I've seen that date a lot.
Interesting
I think
looking.
there was a major diphtheria epidemic going through at that time.
Interesting looking stone.
Yep, a lot of people died in 1886, especially children, and I'm sure it was from the diphtheria.
This is
Terrible disease, and it mainly seemed to kill children, and they more or less kind of choked to death because their throats would swell up so badly. A terrible disease.
Yeah, it's unreal.
Well, I can't imagine. Some of these people lost like 5 children.
Well, what did that book say, 12?
Well, it didn't say that they died. They just said that he had 12
Oh, that he
children.
had
Yeah.
12.
So I don't know if they're all buried here or not, but it did say one of the other families had lost 7 children,
Oh, my goodness.
and there was a family by the name of Sinrud. I remember that they lost 5 children within 2 weeks. You know, I don't know how you could survive something like that. You know, losing all your children in a short length of time. They said the 5 children died and they were just left with their baby. That was the only survivor.
Probably the one with the weakest immune system was the one that's
Yeah.
lived.
It was just, it's just hard to imagine. I can't imagine it. I just can't. I know people back then, you know, it was pretty common to lose children, but that doesn't mean that they didn't love and care for those children and mourn when they were gone.
Well, and so although there's just a few markers, there's a significant population that's here.
Right.
On this beautiful spot that pre-Highway 53 would have overlooked one branch going into the Pigeon Creek.
Right.
And the Pigeon Creek itself, which is just on the other side of the highway there.
So a real pretty quiet,
Peaceful place.
peaceful spot, and I suppose then when they got the churches actually built, and then of course Lutherans seem to like to bury people around the church,
Right, right.
which is what they did up there. And that was common. You know, I go to Foggerness Church, and that's what's all around the church are where people were buried. So it kind of means you can't do a lot of excavating and add on to the church anyway.
Well,
But
and
that was the custom.
and I wonder if there wasn't at one time a church structure up here for the early settlers, but then
Yeah.
so many buildings got moved, right?
Yeah, it could be.
It could be the post office building,
It very well could be.
which is now a house.
Maybe there had been a church or a structure here, like you say, and it got moved or recycled into something else. You never know. It might be somebody's chicken coop
Or somebody's house.
or granary or house. You just don't know. People were very
Thrifty.
pragmatic back then. They did not. They were certainly into recycling. They did not throw things away.
What a it's peaceful little spot here.
Now there's another bush over here. Maybe this goes here. And as we're walking, there's places here that kind of, you know, sunk in a little bit. So maybe that indicates there was a burial there.
Yeah, there's a lot more history here that we just can't see. And that's why it's so important that we document these places.
Yeah. And as you can see, this little cemetery is taken care of.
Very well taken care of.
Neglected, it's not growing up into thorns. And so it's just a place I don't think a lot of people realize is even here.
No.
But it has been taken care of. And
On a nice grassy knoll overlooking the streams.
right.
How more peaceful can you get than that, Nancy?
It is a beautiful sight. And of course the village of Pigeon has expanded, I'm sure, from what it was originally. But it's still a beautiful, quiet little village. So if you're looking for a place that's got a lot of bustle and noise and stuff going on all the time, maybe that's not Pigeon.
It's a little quieter than that.
Yeah.
Occasionally, maybe on the weekends, things get a little frisky, but I think that's within town.
Christians are frisky, huh?
Well, sometimes I think they like to shake it up a bit.
Oh, I'm sure. So that's about all we have on this cemetery. I don't think there's been any burials here probably since what, 1919 or so?
19, was that 19 or 13?
Was the mail carrier, Mr. Peterson. So,
He was probably the last one. Oh, this one's 18.
Don't drop that on
No.
your foot.
This one's 1844 to 1878.
Yeah.
Wow.
People didn't live very long back then.
Well, but you know, Nancy, whoever set this stone up against the back stone, because it looks like it was part of the same stone,
Yeah.
that's why it wasn't exposed to the conditions.
Right.
And so it didn't get
Weather worn.
all the little, and they can age these mosses
Yeah.
and fungi to
I
see.
guess they can.
Yep.
I'm not an expert on fungus.
They grow very, very, very slowly, only on rocks. And yeah, they can look at them under a microscope and they can tell you how old they are. A little bit of geohistory.
Yeah.
Unreal.
So I guess in closing here, Mary, we'll have
Yeah.
to say, if anybody knows where the petrified Mrs. Fuller is actually buried,
Yes. Let us
it'd be
know.
fun to know. Not that I'm planning on digging them up or anything.
Little bit of history. Some tragic things happened to some of the families here. Lost lots and lots of kids. But they are resting at peace on a beautiful little knoll.
Yeah, and I hope we're all appreciative of how rare it is these days that people would lose a child, like in childbirth or
Let alone 7.
a terrible epidemic. Yeah.
Exactly.
How many people do you know have ever had diphtheria?
Yeah.
So,
It's pretty thin. Well,
thankful for that.
and we'll close with this beautiful sunshot. And thank you for joining us on the History Files. Thank you.